We've all seen it, right? A company with a brilliant idea, a fantastic team, and then it just fails. So what's the secret sauce? What's the one thing that truly separates the winners from the losers? Well, today we're diving into some fascinating research from Bill Gross, who analyzed over 200 companies to find that single biggest reason for success. I mean, it's the question that haunts every entrepreneur. You can have what seems like a perfect plan, a rock star team, cash in the bank, and still end up in the startup graveyard. Why is that? What's the one factor that actually moves the needle? Now, this isn't about gut feelings or just telling a few stories. This is about data. Bill Gross, who's launched over 100 companies himself, took a really systematic look at 200 different startups, the big successes and the big failures, to get a scientific answer. And what he found? Well, it's probably not what you think. So let's talk about that billion-dollar question. See, after running his own startup incubator, Idea Lab, and watching some companies soar while others stumbled, Gross realized he had to get past his own instincts and biases. He needed to know objectively what really mattered most. To figure this out, the investigation zeroed in on 5 key factors. These are basically the usual suspects, right? The things everyone talks about in business books and investor meetings. So here are the 5 contenders. First, you've got the idea itself. Is it a light bulb moment, a true game changer? Second, the team and their execution. Do they have the skill and grit to actually build it? Third, the business model. Is there a clear way to actually make money? Fourth, funding. How much cash do they have in the tank? And finally, number 5, timing. Is the world actually ready for this idea right now? For a long time, Gross himself thought the team was everything. And it makes sense, right? A great team can adapt to anything. It kind of reminds me of what the philosopher Mike Tyson once said. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. In business, that punch in the face usually comes from your customers. So how did he test these 5 factors? Well, the whole process was designed to be as unbiased and data-driven as possible. And we're not talking about a small sample size here. The study was a deep dive into 200 different companies. 100 of them were from Gross's own incubator, Idea Lab, so he knew them inside and out, and the other 100 were well-known companies from the outside world. And these are names you'll definitely recognize. The analysis covered huge successes like Airbnb, Uber, and YouTube. But it also looked at some spectacular failures. Companies like Webvan and Cosmo.com, remember them? They had tons of funding and massive ambition, but they still crashed and burned. Okay, so the stage is set. The data has been crunched, and the result was a total curveball. It wasn't what most people, including Bill Gross himself, ever expected. The number one reason for success was about to be revealed. Before we jump to the answer, what do you think it is? What's your bet? The brilliant idea, the unstoppable team, the deep pockets from funding? Let's see what the data has to say. And the answer is timing. Yep, timing was the single biggest factor that separated the winners from the losers. Let's look at the numbers to see just how much it mattered. This table just lays it out so clearly. Timing is king at a whopping 42%. The team and how well they execute, that's the queen at 32%. And the idea itself is right behind it. But look what's at the bottom, the business model and the funding. And that kind of makes sense, right? If you got something customers are clamoring for, you can figure out a business model later. And if you've got that kind of traction, the funding will come find you. So what does perfect timing actually look like in the real world? Let's dive into a couple of case studies that show just how incredibly powerful it can be. So let's talk about Airbnb. When they started, everyone thought the idea was crazy. Let a total stranger sleep in my spare room? No way. I mean, tons of very smart investors passed on them. But their timing was accidentally perfect. They launched right in the middle of the Great Recession, when people were desperate for extra cash just to make ends meet. That economic need made people overcome their hesitation, and it made a crazy idea feel very, very practical. This might be the clearest example of all. Back in 1999, a company called Z.com wanted to do online video. They had funding, they had a business model, but they were way too early. Hardly anyone had broadband internet, and you had to download all these special codecs just to watch a clip. The company went out of business. But just a few years later, in 2005, YouTube launched. The world had changed. Over half the homes in the US had broadband, and Adobe Flash made watching a video as simple as clicking a button. YouTube's timing was perfect, and it just exploded. So what's the big lesson here? Timing really just boils down to one simple question. Is the market truly ready for what you're offering right now? It's not about being the first person to have an idea, it's about being the first one there when the world is finally ready to listen. Okay, let's wrap this all up. Now that we know timing is the single biggest factor, what does that actually mean for you? Whether you're building a company, investing in one, or just kicking around a cool idea. Well, it means you have to be brutally honest with yourself. Ask the hard questions. Is there a massive shift happening in the world, like the recession that helped Airbnb? Is there a new technology that just made your idea possible, like broadband did for YouTube? Don't just fall in love with your solution. You have to look for those external signs, that tailwind that proves the time is right. So as we close this out, maybe the most important question you can ask yourself isn't, is my idea good or is my team smart? It's this. Looking at the world today, with everything that's going on, is the timing finally right?